Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. You're listening to IKIM, Inspirasi Inforia Islami. Alhamdulillah. In this program, Man and Nature, we return this week to discuss on another topic with our guest, Dr. Sheikh Muhammad Safiuddin Sheikh Muhammad Saleh, Senior Fellow Director, Center for Science and Environment Studies at IKIM. And you're with me, Mazlina Ismail. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Sheikh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Looking good, Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much. How are you today?
Feeling good, Alhamdulillah. So, inshallah, our topic this week is towards a nature smart generation. It's an interesting topic to discuss on, and we would like to know first what will be the focus of our discussion today. Please, Dr.
Right,
Sheikh.
thank you, Hajah Mazlina. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. Alhamdulillah, we meet again on this again on the air in this program, Man and Nature, this week. And as mentioned by Hajah Mazlina, our topic will be on nature smart generation. Now, in the previous weeks, we have discussed a number of topics pertaining to concepts that are important in looking after the environment. But as we have discussed and as we understand, concepts, if they are not translated into actions, would remain just that. And as such, there must be efforts to translate these concepts into reality so that it can bring about the desired results that we want. And one way to do this, to my mind, is by focusing on the young generation who would inherit the world. We need to instill certain values and virtues within them so that they would have the awareness and drive to spur the changes needed to create a better world. Or looking at it from another dimension, create a healthier relationship between man and the environment. And this is something that we have been stressing again and again, as this is something that is also very pertinent and critical. Therefore, if we were to focus on the young generation, I believe that one way that we can do this is by creating something that we term as a nature smart generation. And this, inshallah, will be the focus of our discussion today.
Right, inshallah. So, what do you mean now when you say nature smart? If you want to try to understand the term.
Right. Yeah. I think that phrase nature smart probably is something new to many of us. For parents as well as teachers who may want to recognize nature smart children, there are actually some indicators that can be looked out for. In essence, nature smart deals with sensing patterns in as well as making connections to elements in nature. Children possessing enhanced levels of nature smarts may be interested in behaviors, traits, or habitats of the natural world. They may also have a strong affinity or attraction to the outside world or to specific animals or to specific habitats. And more often than not, these interests start at a very young age. We can also note that children who are nature smart tend to be attracted to programs on television, stories or subjects that deal with the natural world, be they in the form of flora or fauna, or even natural phenomena taking place in the natural world. Another interesting point that I'd like to highlight is that children who are nature smart are often keenly aware of their surroundings and changes in their environment.
Right.
And this awareness is due to their highly developed levels of sensory perception, and this may assist them to notice patterns, similarities, differences, and changes in their surroundings more rapidly or more easily compared to other people. And they are also able to categorize and catalog things quite easily because they are sensitive to patterns and trends. So in terms of nature smart, there's another term related to it, which is naturalistic intelligence. They are more or less equivalent, but I think if we recognize these traits, it will be easier for us to identify children who have this character of being nature smart.
I see. Okay. Now, in essence, as you said, nature smart is actually a form of intelligence, which categorized as naturalistic intelligence. This is something new that I learned. Would you elaborate further on this concept, Dr. Chef.
Right. Before I answer that question, perhaps I'd like to ask a question to Hajah Mazlina.
All right.
Okay. Have you heard of the phrase or the term multiple intelligence?
I think so.
Okay. Yes, I think many people are familiar with that because multiple intelligence is a concept introduced by Howard Gardner. He wrote in 1983 a very famous book called Frames of Mind, The Theory of Multiple Intelligence, which actually put forward that there are 7 types of intelligence, namely verbal or linguistic, mathematical or logical, spatial, musical, kinesthetics, interpersonal, and also intrapersonal. Now, interestingly, 23 years later, in 2006, Howard Gardner wrote another book, Multiple Intelligence, New Horizons in Theory and Practice, which added an 8th form of intelligence called naturalistic intelligence. So, according to Gardner, naturalistic intelligence is the ability to identify, classify, and manipulate elements of the environment, objects, animals, or plants. And naturalistic intelligence has to do with being in tune with the natural world and one's natural environment. Like other intelligence or strengths, naturalistic intelligence is not fixed like a standard IQ. It can grow, it can be developed and instilled throughout a person's life. A person who has naturalistic intelligence have a higher sense of appreciation towards life and all of its wonders. In other words, they are nature smart. A person who has naturalistic intelligence is a nature smart person and show interest in the natural world as well as the natural phenomena, have an affinity towards flora and fauna, have an uncanny ability to make observations as well as distinctions about nature. So I'm sure we know friends who have these abilities, who have an affinity towards nature, who can easily identify trends and patterns. I would say that these people are people who are nature smart, and they have this naturalistic intelligence as coined by Howard Gardner.
Right, I see. We usually also heard of book smart and street smart. This is
Yes,
naturalistic intelligence, which is
nature
nature
smart.
smart.
That's right.
I see. So, how does Islam view this concept of nature smart or naturalistic intelligence?
Right. In terms of science, intelligence or cognitive development is a biophysical potential to process information that can be utilized to among other things, to solve problems. It is the ability to learn from experience and to adopt, shape, and select environments. Now, discussions on intelligence and its multifacets are actually not new in the Islamic tradition of knowledge. Howard Gardner, as I mentioned earlier, may have introduced and popularized the concept of multiple intelligence for the modern audience. But if we were to look at history, we have Islamic scholars who had put forward similar ideas much earlier, albeit probably in a somewhat different context. For example, we have the very well-known scholar Ibn Khaldun, who touched on al-aqal al-tamyizi, which is the discerning intellect, al-aqal al-tajribi, which is the experimental intellect, and al-aqal al-nazari, which is the speculative intellect. Ibn Khaldun believes that humans learn through experience, senses, and the intellectual process. Now, if we were to extend the concepts of al-aqal al-tamyizi, al-aqal al-tajribi, and al-aqal al-nazari as proposed by Ibn Khaldun, they can definitely be contextualized into the concept of nature smart or naturalistic intelligence. Al-aqal al-tamyizi allows a person to be able to discern or sense everything that is around him, and this definitely include the natural world and all its characteristics. Al-aqal al-tajribi is the ability to distinguish the good and the bad through interactions in order to make quick decisions about what can be done and what must be avoided. Most definitely, this applies with our interactions with the natural world. Al-aqal al-nazari involves ideas or conceptions of an object that is behind sensory perceptions without practical actions, which gives an impression of existence which covers various generalizations as well as understanding the reason behind cause and effect. Again, this is critical for naturalistic intelligence as it as it enables a person to understand the natural world. So as we can see, discussions on intelligence, multiple intelligence, if you like, is not new, has been around for many, many centuries. Ibn Khaldun is one of the pioneers when it comes to this approach of thinking. And we can actually contextualize what Ibn Khaldun mentioned or said regarding the various forms of intelligence vis-a-vis naturalistic intelligence as discussed by Howard Gardner.
Right. So how do I identify them? Like, what are the characteristics of a person who is nature smart or has this naturalistic intelligence, Dr. Sheh?
Right. I think that's a very interesting question. So I will share with you and also our listeners a number of characteristics
Mm-hmm.
that can be attributed to nature smart people.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, nature smart people, as I said earlier, would show an inclination or an affinity towards the natural world, and because
Okay.
of this, they will actually exhibit a number of characteristics. They express a desire to understand how things work. They care about the environment and like to be in touch with nature. They like to explore. They like to discover new things. They are also interested with tools that can be used for observation. When I say tools, I'm referring to things like microscopes,
Mm-hmm.
magnifying glasses, telescopes, and also binoculars.
Yeah.
They also like to observe natural phenomena like rain, sunset, sunrise, rainbows, etc. They are also sensitive and appreciative of nature. They like to get their hands dirty by doing things like gardening, playing with sand, playing with soil, or just simply jumping into the river. Their hobby most often involves the natural world. They are environmentally conscious and are often disturbed when they see something destroying the environment, for example, pollution. And they like to participate in environmental causes. They care for animals and also plants, and they enjoy having pets. And they also like to read about the natural world from books and also watch programs on the natural world of the natural world. So these are some of the characteristics that we can see in a nature smart person. They may not exhibit all of these characteristics, but if there are some of these
Mm-hmm.
characteristics that exist within a person, then I would say the person has an inclination towards being a nature smart person.
I see. Interesting. So if a person is nature smart, how would this translate into their actions in the real world?
Again, another interesting question. If they have all or some of the characteristics I mentioned, they are nature smart and they would display some of the following behaviors. They would feel at best, at their very best, when they are in the outdoors. They are not an
Mm.
indoor person. They enjoy the outdoors.
Right.
They like to strive for balance with nature and their mind
Mm.
and body.
Mm.
They demonstrate an empathy with nature and its creatures, and they have a strong sense of responsibility towards the environment. And they possess a sensitivity to animal abuse and environmental destruction. So this is a sensitive subject matter for them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as I said, they enjoy the outdoors, therefore they enjoy exploration and also adventure. They notice patterns and rhythms from their surroundings, and they are able to pinpoint things in their surroundings or environments that other people tend to miss or ignore. And they have a sharp memory for details, easily remembering things from their surroundings, display a sense of awe, surprise, and wonderment for or about the natural world or natural phenomena. And this is interesting. According to research, they also are very schematic people who looks for structures, patterns, and trends, and
Mm-hmm.
they understand statistics. I think if you have friends who are inclined towards statistics, try to ask them questions whether they are an outdoor person, whether they like nature. So
Mm-hmm.
chances are, if they are, then they are a nature smart person. And aside from that, studies have also shown that nature smart people have strong interest in certain branches of science, namely ecology,
Mm-hmm.
biology, and also chemistry.
Right.
So chances are, again, I would say those ecologists, biologists, and chemists are
Mm-hmm.
nature smart people. So this is some of the behaviors that we can see on people who are nature smart or have naturalistic intelligence.
Okay, having said all that characteristics, I'm just wondering, is it born with, or we can develop a nature smart person, Dr. Shah?
Right, I think nature smart person can be developed. It's not something that you are
Mm.
born with. As I said, it can be developed over time. So if even if somebody is born with those traits, if they
Mm-hmm.
are not looked after, they will lose those traits.
Mm-hmm.
So as children grow, I think it is necessary to ensure that they develop skills related to nature smart, at least for them to appreciate the natural world and have a healthy relationship with the environment. Children who are nature smart enjoy playing outside,
Yeah.
looking, seeking. Uh, they like to go camping, hiking, climbing. They like to swim. They like to explore. They like gardening, and basically, to put it simply, they like to get their hands dirty. So if you have children who are inclined towards this, please do not inhibit these characteristics, because these are the characteristics that will make them nature smart as they grow older. And another characteristic that I think we must not ignore is that children who are nature smart tend to ask endless questions about what they observe or what they experience. So, as parents, please be alert on this. If your children ask questions, don't stop them, encourage them, try to answer them as best as possible. If you don't know the answer, then explore the answer together with your children. Find the answers together with the children, so that you'll be informed, and at the same time, your children will get the answers that they are looking for. And so, the following can be some of the things that can be done to develop a nature smart person.
Okay.
One is, by just simply enjoying nature, by taking walks or visiting natural locations. I'm sure
That's
I
not
know
hard to do.
that's not hard to do, but I know this is difficult to do when we are in a
Yes,
pandemic.
correct.
But this is something that we can look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
we try to enjoy nature.
Yeah.
Uh, as I said, because of the pandemic, it's hard for us to go out, but that does not mean that we cannot cultivate a garden. Let's have a
Mm.
garden around our house, or if you live in condominiums, we can have also mini gardens in our
Mm-hmm.
units.
Yeah.
This is also a way to encourage our children to develop nature smart skills.
Mm-hmm.
Also encourage our children to be involved in hands-on activities, not necessarily things that have directly to do with nature, but also hands-on activities in the kitchen, for example. If you're preparing dinner, when you're cooking things, let them be involved. Read books and articles about nature and the environment, instill their
Right.
interest in the
Mm-hmm.
subject matter. Encourage them to keep a nature journal and scrapbooks. This
Mm-hmm.
is something simple that can be done. Encourage them to be observant of changes in the weather or environment and keep notes of these changes. I remember
Mm-hmm.
when I was in school in during standard two,
Yeah.
my science teacher actually a large piece of paper at the back of the class
Yeah.
that is divided into the days of the month, and every day we take turns to jot down by drawing the sun or the cloud or the rain, just to indicate what the weather was like at that particular day, on that particular day.
Mm.
So
Right.
this is a way for us to be observant of the changes in our environment.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we can encourage our children to be involved in care for pets or even wildlife, as well as gardens and also parks. We can also encourage our children to use scientific gadgets such
Yeah.
as binoculars, telescopes, microscopes, and magnifying glasses, as I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this important? Because we want to train them to see things differently, not just by using our naked eye, but when we use these gadgets, we can see the natural world differently. We can encourage them to draw or take photographs of the natural world. This can be a very interesting hobby for them. We can also encourage them to collect specimens of natural organisms, such as
Mm-hmm.
feathers, leaves, flowers, etc. And we can also encourage them to express themselves about nature in the form of poems, stories, articles, blogs, etc. So these are some of the things that we can do to develop a nature smart generation. I'm sure parents can think of many other things, but these are some of the basic things I think that can help to encourage our children to be nature smart.
All right. It's not really hard to do actually these activities.
No,
It's
it's
quite
not difficult.
natural, in fact. Yeah.
True, it's not difficult, and I think it's just a matter of starting the
Mm-hmm.
activity. I
Yeah.
think that one of the challenge that we face today is that because we are so much engrossed with the computer these days,
Gadgets. Yeah.
gadgets. But then again, gadgets and computers can also be used to create
That's
nature
right.
smart generation just
Mm-hmm.
by showing them websites or videos or
Yeah. Or
animations
documentaries they
or
can watch.
documentaries. That's right, that have to do with nature. There is also
Mm.
something that can be a catalyst for the children to develop nature smart
Mm-hmm.
characteristics.
But okay, having said that, why is it important to develop this? What are the benefits of having a nature smart generation? Dr. Share.
Right. When we have a nature smart generation, I think we would have a generation with a certain characteristics, such as being observant and alert to the changes taking place in the natural world. The problem that we have today is that most of us do not seem to have the sensitivity or empathy towards the problems that are being faced in the natural world. We look at these problems as not being our problems. It's not something for us to think about or solve. So, if we have a nature smart generation, it is hoped that they can be a generation that can be alert, as well as a generation that can also take actions to remedy or mitigate the situation. As I said, empathy towards the environment is important. So we hope that the nature smart generation can be a generation that is full of empathy, that will lead towards a better interaction with the environment. And by environment, I mean not only animals and plants, but also people. Uh, we also hope that this nature smart generation will be a generation that is sensitive to environmental issues, which will create a better and more urgent emphasis on the importance of realizing or manifesting concepts that we have discussed before, such as sustainability, conservation, and preservation. As I said at the beginning of the program, we do not want to talk about these concepts as merely rhetorics, but we want to translate them into meaningful actions. If we have people who are nature smart, then they will take all the necessary means to ensure that these concepts can be translated into actions that can bring about the much desired change that we want. A nature smart generation is also curious and inquisitive to learn and discover new things about the natural world. So, this is something that is healthy, that must be encouraged, and this is something that is also beneficial for the future of the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
It's also worthwhile mentioning that a nature smart person has active motor skills that can keep the mind active through activities such as collecting, sorting, categorizing, cataloging, as well as discovering. So we need this kind of people in the world today for us to better understand the natural world that we live in, to understand the environment that we live in. People like this can help us to understand better and also to create greater awareness when it comes to looking after the environment. I think we've done enough talking. We
Yeah.
need action, and for this to happen, we need people who are action oriented. And I believe people who have these characteristics are people who are nature smart.
Right, inshallah, people which has this nature smart characteristics, we're looking for you, Che. It's not like we're looking for you anywhere, but yeah, we want you to develop your interest more, inshallah, so that it will benefit our future, inshallah. Yeah, Dr. Shah, how
Inshallah.
would you like to conclude our topic today?
I think it's good for us to be aware that there is
Mm-hmm.
this category of multiple intelligence called naturalistic intelligence that can
Yeah.
create a nature smart generation. As I've
Mm-hmm.
shared earlier, there are a number of characteristics that we can look out for. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have children, look out for these characteristics in your children and try to instill
Yeah.
and develop them further. So that they can be part of the generation that can be friendlier to the environment.
Right.
We must encourage our children to develop nature smart skills so that they can be in tune with nature and also their
Mm-hmm.
surroundings. I think this is important for the survival of the future generation as well as the world.
Inshallah. That's it, I think, for this week in this program, Man and Nature Towards a Nature Smart Generation with Dr. Sheikh Muhammad Saifuddin bin Sheikh Muhammad Saleh. We would like to thank you, Dr. Sheikh, and I see you again next week, inshallah. for more
Inshallah,
interesting
looking forward
topics.
to that.
Yes, inshallah. So until then, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam